I am Daniele Teti. These are some books that I wrote in the time. This one is wrote also with Daniele Spinetti over there somewhere. So, how many of you use actively the DMVC framework? Okay, good. And in 2023, there are 4 versions of the DMVC framework. A lot of improvements, a lot of work, a lot of contributors all around the world. So the framework is improved a lot. And we are here today to talk more or less of the best feature, the most important feature from all the 2023. Okay. This is the main new features cumulative from 3.2.0 to 3.4.1 sodium, which is now on my SSD, okay, and Github. So we'll talk about the new wizard from the UI part and the generated code part. One of the best new feature is the most visible feature, which is the functional actions. It's quite a historical change for the framework. And then we'll talk about MVC Active Record, which is another new stuff called named query and virtual entities, which are really nice. And the .env support. How many of you have you ever seen the file named .env somewhere? A lot. Okay. In the MVC framework, there is the support for the .env format and all the fantasticherie. Then there is the experimental support for Microsoft Heap Memory Manager, which is an enormous improvement in terms of speed related to memory allocation. We'll do some tests. Then we'll talk about the URL encoder serializer, all the improvements regarding the server-side views, which are more or less driven by the HTMX support built in the product. HTMX is a JavaScript library which aims to write 0 JavaScript. It is not correct because we are talking about the switching from an approach with a lot of JavaScript, let's say React, Angular, Svelte, and so on, to approach of very low JavaScript. So you don't need such big framework, but it's a choice. We'll talk about it in another speech because just this one is very big. So the first one we want to check is the new extended wizard. Has been improved over the years, and now this is the latest one, the sodium beta version, the 3.4.1 sodium. And you can select middlewares. You can. This is present from some years. Is the automatic generation from JSON RPC API, and also there is the new check use MSRIP on Microsoft Windows. Clicking here, you can go to the latest version of the official guide, the book, where you can buy the ebook version for English, Spanish, and Portuguese, and also the hardcover version for English. And here, clicking here, you can always get to the latest version. So if you don't know, am I on the latest version, you can click there and go directly there. So about the code generated by the wizard, we did a lot of changes. After a survey on the Facebook group, we removed the re-EPL loop, so read, evaluate, print loop. We removed it because more or less no one really used it, so just keep it simple. Then the generated code asks for a Ctrl+C to stop the server. This seems a small change, but this one is really important if you want to package your DMVC framework in Docker, because Ctrl+C is what is understood by Docker to stop the process. Okay, so it's not a small change. It is a small change, but it's not small because it's very important. Then the .env configuration is automatic. So for all the new project, you have the .env configuration automatically with 3 profiles. Default profiles, which is in the .env file, test profiles, which is test profile, which is in .env.test, and production profile, .env.prod, which are merged. Then there is the profiler configuration directly in the project, and this new, let's say, variable, global variable, which is named MVC serialized null. Which affects how the framework serializes nulls. So, yeah, quite. This is the new UI. You can also create, if the sample CRUD action actually use a real entity. So when you click OK, you can get a lot of stuff. Let's see here. The run server procedure is quite simpler and already contains the configuration for the .env. This means if you don't have a variable, an environment variable, or a configuration in the .env file, then use this value. So if the file is not present, just use this, the default one. Then there is the serialized nulls, which is the default historically is true, but you can put it false if you don't want to serialize nulls. This is the configuration for the .env, which can be used also in other kind of application. You can use .env everywhere. All that stuff are configurable. Also here, this is the profiler, the built-in profiler in DMVCFramework. Just enable it using the DMVC profiler enable on the .env file, or just put it straight to true, and it works. Then there is, in the previous version, this method, the CRUD sample method, were empty. But now contains code to show how actually works with the no active record, because it requires a database. It's just entity. And here you have the entity. Okay? Then go on. Let's talk about functional actions, which is the, let's say, the most important news. Historically, in DMVCFramework, you've write your action using procedure, and then you call render. This is still supported and will be supported in the future, but now there is also the functional actions. What means? Means that the action is not a procedure, but it's a function. And you don't have to call render because the return value of the function is automatically rendered. This approach, it is not flexible like the renders one, the classical one, but for, I think, 95%, I completely invented this number, but 95% is simpler and just do the job. So use it when you can. The action's return value is automatically rendered, and if it is an object, its memory is automatically freed. Take care that if there are nested objects, you have to correctly free the nested object. Okay? So the return value is freed, but if it contains some memory leaks, you have a memory leaks. Okay? So the result type can be simple type, so integer, double string, blah, 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 record or array of record, also nested, and object or t-object list, interface, and also straight JSON object and JSON array. If you just use also t-dataset, clearly. If you use JSON object or JSON array, the serialization doesn't happen. It's just the framework just retrieved the JSON representation of the object. In case you need more control over HTTP response, so setting the headers, status code, and so on, it is possible to use this special interface, which is called IMVC response, which allows to completely customize all the stuff you need. This is how it looks. Like a bunch of actions using functional actions. As you see, there is no procedure here. You can mix and match. You can use procedure, function. It's smart enough to understand. Also in the same controller. So as you see, just declare as usual, but this is a function. And now the return value is automatically serialized with the same engine used by the render ones. You can serialize array of records, objects, object list, JSON object, JSON array, and so on. This is the implementation, just plain methods. You don't know nothing about HTTP protocols. For simple case, the functional action makes it even simpler to use the DMVC framework. For complex case, you can just use it using IMVC response. Clearly, MVC active record is fully supported, and simpler than this, you cannot do it. Just one line to retrieve the data, then deserialize into an object, and then serialize it. It works also for list of. Complex type can be retrieved too, and are not just serialized. Are serialized knowing that the object is a T dataset or is a T something. In this case, there is a T dataset, and the framework knows that is a T dataset. Take care, this instance will be freed. So don't return the T dataset descendant that you have put on the T data module, because you have to clone it using, for instance, this. If you have FireMonkey, if you have FireDuck, you can clone it in this way, which is really, really powerful. If also this dataset is FireDuck, okay? If not, you can use anything. Just know that if this object is not handled by you directly, but by something else, take care that that object will be freed, ok? È chiaro a tutti? Ok. Perfetto. It can also serialize an enumerable of T dataset, which serializes an array of T dataset. If you need to put a name on this dataset, you can use our good old IMVC object dictionary, which is the same that you use normally using the renders and render diction, okay, object dictionary. And you can just return this object dictionary using this factory method with a fluent interface, and just adding name and thing to serialize, names and things to serialize, okay? It is interface based, so you don't have to free anything. Also, beyond data serialization, cool, is simpler than before, but can I manage my response in a more deeper way? Sure, you can. But you have to understand that you are not just returning an object, okay? So if you want to set the status code, if you want to set the headers, if you want to do anything, you have to go deeper in the protocol approach. You have to understand what HTTP is and so on. In this case, you can define the return of the methods of the action as IMVC response. Always this one. And then you can use the MVC response builder, which is an implementation of the builder design pattern, which in a way really, really simple allows you to set up status code, all the headers, and also different kind of body, We are talking about the response. Let's see how it works. In this case, we are returning an MVC response created by the MVC response builder. Take care, the MVC response is returned only by the build method. Don't forget the build method. So, response builder, set status, set header, blah, 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 body, and this kind of body, this other kind of body, and then build. Okay, all the object passed to the memory of the response builder is owned by the response builder. So if you write this one, so you are setting status code and body, you get this response, status code and body. If you have this configuration, so status code, body, with an object body, you get this one. Check, the object is wrapped into the data property, okay? Also, if you want to set a list of objects to get this one, data automatically is an array. If you want to set up custom header and a body message, you can write this one and you get this one. You can mix and match, so status, headers, body, blah, 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 blah. There is not an order. You can put anything in the way you want. I usually use status, header, and body just because in the response I have status, headers, and body. But it's just a convention, yeah. If you return raw JSON, the framework is smart enough to understand that don't have to serialize the JSON object, but just retrieve the JSON representation of the object directly to the object. And this is the case. There is the new function, built-in function, which is str to JSON object, which just, it is safe in the terms that if this is not a valid JSON, it raises an exception. Doesn't return nil, empty, something that you have to check, okay? Just fail first, harden first. Okay, so status code, body as JSON and build, and just this JSON is wrapped in the data property directly. Also, you can use the three kinds of body together. So you can put status code, body as a string, body as a single object, body as object dict, and you get a complex response. So all these examples and also many others are available in the samples, in the official samples called Functional Actions Showcase. Okay, there you can find anything. Daniele.
Thank you. Just little question. About the automatic functional actions return, the property that you render the final result is always data?
The property name is always data currently, but I was thinking about to configure also that name. I just have to find the way that pleasure my brain.
Because it's fine, just out of curiosity.
Yes. It's quite simple, but it's quite simple, you know. But I was thinking if it means if it does make sense to put it as a configuration or just for each call. This is the difference.
Yeah, I like data.
Do you like data? Okay. Anyone like data? Anyone like data? Okay, we can stick with data. Okay.
But just for the, not when you use the builder, when it's automatic, just it's the same. I was just to confirm it's the same.
Yeah. It's the
When
same.
you just return an integer, when it's a function.
Yeah.
Integer is data with a, okay, that's it.
Okay, let's talk about the next big thing in this DMVC Framework 2023, which are the named queries. Having the RQL or SQL in your code scattered around is not a good thing, you know. And usually you can do something with a good level of discipline to put all the stuff in the right place. But if the DMVC record could have an automatic approach to do the things in a clear manner, would be better. Starting from this thinking, DMVC record allows us to do this with named queries. I borrowed the idea from Java Spring Boot framework. There is something good also in the Java frame. Yes. There is. This one is very good, but is more simple. It is simpler to use in DMVC compared to Java. A named query is statically defined query, so the text of the query doesn't change. What it can be changed are the parameters, which drives the query, and it's directly connected to the entities. Let me explain. Let's say we have a simple entity. All of you understand this code? It's just a mapping, customers, the field, blah, 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 blah. We can, using these attributes, MVC name SQL query, we can put a name, a descriptive name of the query, and then the SQL connected to this name. The result of this execution is then mapped to the entities. Simple. Usually, DMVC active record generates SQL. In this case, doesn't generate SQLs. Just use the return, the dataset return to map over the single object or the list of. And then you can use it in this way. Select by name query. This is the type to return, and this is the name of the query. That's it. And just you have the list of whatever. What happens if I need parameters? Yes, we have. In this case, we have best customers fixing with rated greater or equal to 4. In this case, with rated greater or equal to something. Select star from customer where rating greater or equal to unnamed parameter. In this case, I can have 0 or 1000 of SQL query named here. I can also use this as a constant in some units. It's just simple to see now that I have to stick it here. If you have a query with 10 joins, don't put there. And then you can use it in this way. We are not talking about query unprepared statement. All the statements generated by this functionality are prepared. So no SQL injection. Okay? No SQL injection. We are talking about always with parameters. Ok. Tra qualche slide lo saprai. Sì, sì. Vedi qui. Quindi se metti il parametro con la notazione del punto di domanda, sai, in Delphi puoi mettere due punti, nome parametro, e sono i name parameter, o punto di domanda, e è posizionale. Normalmente se tu definisci la query a design time, scrivi il nome, ma se la generi o non sai come chiamarlo o non, chi ti usa potrebbe non saperlo, quelli posizionali sono ottimi. Sì, è posizionale. Qui hai l'array, qui hai l'array, sì, simile. Here you have two arrays, one with the values and the other one with the types. Which is the first one, the second one, the third one, and so on. Okay.
But if you use string as kind of parameter, you can still have a SQL injection.
No? No, because parameters are sent by the database driver in two different moments. So it is not possible to have SQL injection. It's not just a string replace done by the driver. It's not a string replace. The driver sends the parameter to the database, which does all the things, and then sends only the data. So there is no way to do SQL injection using prepare parameters. It is not just a string replace. Okay?
I was thinking it was a string replace.
No, it is not. So if you want to use string, just put string here and ft string here. That's it. Okay? Native SQL query, considering that MVC Active Record supports 6 different engines as database, could be different between for dialects and Oracle, Postgres, Firebird, and so on. So how to handle these differences? Just you can overloading native SQL query. So you can put as another parameter the name of the engine which should use this SQL. So same name, different text, very probably, and different database. And if you want to use for a specific database one functionality and for all the other, the general one, you can use this one for Firebird, this one for Postgres, and this one with the same name without specifying an engine. And just if it is not Firebird, if it is not Postgres, use the default one. Okay? These are the overloading and name SQL query.
The order is important?
Yeah, the order is very important because if you put the general one as a first, is the first. Okay, so the order of declaration is the order of scanning. Okay? Okay, so this is the Firebird SQL version. This is the Postgres SQL version, and this is all the others. Okay, these are some examples without parameters, with one parameters, with one parameters, but with different queries. The same here, but only for Firebird. This is only for Postgres. This is with RQL that no are going to talk about it. And also select from stored procedures. Okay, so if you have stored procedures, if you want to pass parameter, if you want, you can just stick there. Okay, anything that can be executed by a T-SQL query, a TFD query, can be executed by a named SQL query. Okay, the base idea of MVC Active Record is to be simple. So don't magic happen. Then we go to named SQL RQL query. How many of you use RQL? Raise your hand. Okay, RQL stands for Research Query Language. It is a simple language used to filter one single entity. Why I should use RQL? Because it's completely standard. There are 6 compilers which can understand RQL and then generate the correct SQL, the best SQL for each engine. And the RQL, because of the compiler, is not cannot be attacked with a SQL injection, because there are compilers which actually compiles the value. And then there is the abstract syntax tree, and then there is the generation of the actual SQL code. Just like if SQL would be a machine code. So this RQL, it is URL safe. This is the URL safe. This is because RQL is very useful. Because you can just put it on the client side, and there are no problem. It is safe to pass on the URL or anything. The mechanism is the same. The only difference is that this text follows the format function syntax. But is not less secure, because in case of SQL, the statement is directly passed to the engine, but in case of RQL, this text is passed to one of the compilers, which actually compiles, creates the SQL one, the SQL statement, and then is executed. Okay? The mechanisms are the same, but here you cannot choose which engine, because RQL is an abstraction. Okay? Okay. To use RQL is the same method is RQL, that's it. And there is another parameter, because RQL can inject automatically the limit clause. Because RQL can be directly written by the user, because it's more or less like a complex Excel formula, so could be also written by the user, and so just put it a limit, okay? The mechanism is the same, the statements are the same. If you want to switch from RQL to SQL, your code changes only for this, and you have to write the SQL one, okay? Okay, let's talk about virtual entities. Virtual entities are entities which don't map an actual table or view. They're just virtual. So think about virtual entity like a summary query. If I have a query that represents, for example, my inventory with all the orders or the prices or the value for the scaffold or the typical join with 20 tables, it is not an entity. It is just a request. Okay, just give me this one. So you don't need all the crude actions. So create, retrieve. You cannot create a line in the a record in the summary. It's a summary. So you can define these virtual entities. How is it possible to create the virtual entities? You can put this one, MVC entity action, which is an attribute which allows to define how this entity can be managed by the framework. If I can, normally this entity action, if it is empty, by default you can do anything. So delete, update, insert, and so on. You can put it here only what you need. In this case, if you write that you want only to retrieve data, you can use your monstrous query here, defining somewhere, and then just map here without defining primary key, because it doesn't make sense. If you want, you can put the ID to identify the master record, let's say, the principal table, the primary table, but it is not required, because you don't have to create, you don't have to update there. So you can also not define the primary key. But if you don't define the primary key, then there is the check at loading that you have to put this EA retrieve. So the primary key is not required. These are the virtual entity. Sì. It is similar to a view. Okay, here we have the official demo here. All this demo, you can find all this demo in the project. Active record showcase. Here we have the name query. Select by query and so on. Can select which database you want, and then use the named query, and also the virtual entities. Let's check the virtual entities. This tcustomer stats just has this EA retrieve, the name, and then the SQL query, without the primary key defined. That's it. Let's talk about .env. Why .env? Storing configuration in the environment is one of the suggested way from the very famous 12-factor app. Storing configuration in the environment is one of the best practice. So anything that is likely to change, like API key, database password, database username, database host name, the external service credential, the preferred, I don't know, anything that could go on your configuration should be in the environment variables. Okay, but it's not always simple to put always in the environment variable, because maybe that in one system I have many applications running, and also I could have problem to handling with environment variable, and I would like to have to handle some default values. Can be difficult. So how .env simplify this scenario? Think about .env as a way to virtualize environment variable. And this fact allows to a very easy configuration, switchable for different environment, and also mergeable. .env is very popular. It is used in Ruby, Python, React build, in, I don't know, Spring Boot, anything. Docker. So, in simple way, your app will see in a uniform list of variables, .env configuration with all the profiles, and the system environments merged with a criteria of priority decided by you. The .env files are very simple, are just key value. And remember, the same way from where the bash files export the environment variable. It's the same. This is a .env file, key value. This is a comment, this is the value, this is the name. That's it. For the sake of portability and sanity, to save neurons from the developers, environment variable names must consist only of letters, points, digit, and underscore, and cannot start with a digit. This is okay, we're talking about names. Okay, not okay, because it's not a zeta upper lowercase, and cannot start with digit. There is another important stuff in the .env as implemented by DMVCFramework, because there is a parser, an actual parser, which check the syntax and allows you to do variable expansion. Also, again, it is not a string replace, there is a parser, which handles inline comments, which handles comments, which handles the format, the name of the variables. In this way, I can use another variable to define this variable. So, for instance, I could use the DB password, which is calculated based on the username. Or, I don't know, the user preferences part that could be app data. This app data is not defined here, it's defined at the system level. And allows also, using the double quote, allows also the multi-line values to do templates or something. This is the interface to read this stuff. You can read with this env, you can read the contents of the env merged, all the profiles, read expansion and so on, or just using the env to read the operating system variables. This is the sample code that could be used also for a VCL application, FireMonkey, anything. New.env with strategy env then file. So when I ask for a variable, the first check is, does the system define this variable? If not, then read the one in the file, or the opposite, or only the system, or only the file. This is the way you read the value with default. The same here with integer or Boolean, or just in case you need that some variables are defined, you can use require keys. Require keys, this one. And this checks that in the configuration are available these names. Okay? Then you can use the profiles, because you have the development profiles, but also the test profiles, and also the production profiles, and also that customer profile, and also these other profiles, and so on. Or the unit test profile, the Docker profiles, and so on. So you can use this use profile. In this case, what happens? It starts loading if present .env file. Then merge the .env test by name, then .env prod by name, and then does all the expansion. So it allows to just, for example, change just the name of the database and the password from the development to the test, or change anything for production, or anything, okay? If you want to understand what really happened behind the scenes, you can use this use logger. In this case, the .env engine at the startup tells you, I don't find this file, I'm using this one. I read this variable from the environment or not. Okay? All this configuration is done automatically by the DMVCFramework, if you are using the new widgets and so on. There is a very nice playground. Here you have the sample with all the cases, and there are all the .env file sample in the folder, but also the playground. As you can see, I can change it and change this one and this one, because this one, dbur, depends from dbhost. And this, if this is empty, and I try to broke the syntax, there is the parser that tell me I expect that equals got this, blah, 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 blah. Okay? And also for anything, more or less. Okay, let's go on. I'm really, really late. MS heap. The default memory manager on Windows, as you know, for Delphi, since I think Delphi 2006, is Fast Memory Manager, Fast MM, which works very well in many cases, but not so works so well in some other cases. This memory manager is used by our software, our project too, and but is used also in Win32 and Win64-bit. How does FastMM works? It uses from the Windows API virtual alloc and virtual free function, which are in this schema of the Windows memory manager functions, more or less the most near to the kernel, which should be the faster one. It is so, but case happen that your project, maybe they needs to do many small memory allocation over the time, not just allocate 1 gigabyte and then deallocate when the program ends. Maybe you have a situation where the memory goes up, then goes down, then there is a spike. And in this case, having too much code to virtual lock and virtual free could be time consuming. So the guys in the Seattle city think about the heap. What's the heap? It is just, let's say, a wrapper over the virtual alloc and virtual free. So just allocates more memory than what you asked for now, because probably you need more during the execution. So it allocates, at the startup, allocates more memory just because you need it. And then the time is it adjusted. So it is a really big change, this one. Let's see the number. This is all the technical explanation, but I don't have it. So let's get some number. I'm using this, I'm using the generated code from the wizard, just to be the plain, just the framework. I'm using just the framework. And this, the 32-bit one. The 64-bit version is more or less the same. All the numbers are a bit better, are a little better, but the proportion more or less are the same. So we can use the 32-bit to add an idea how it works. I'm using this autocannon, which is a tool to stress an API, which is done by an Italian guy, just to say. And the test is done with
Who is the Italian?
Matteo Gollina. Okay. 500 connections for 60 seconds to the API. This is the default memory manager, the Windows default memory manager. The average requests per second are almost 300. This is the MS SIP. I did the test with 3 tools because I cannot believe it. It's more or less 30 times faster. Zan, zan. Wow. Yeah. Do your own test, because it doesn't mean that your software will become 30 times faster. It depends from many, many things. Also, my own project that I just switch MSC, but it's not the same, it's not 30 times faster, because if I have a huge query, your software is just waiting. Okay, but if you allocate many objects, or if you have many requests, then if your machine, if your project is allocating a lot of memory, maybe that you could try to test the MSIP. Okay. There is also the server-side view improvements. To use MSIP is quite difficult. You have to check one check, this one. Okay, because it's difficult. This is what you have to add. Okay, also in a ready created project. In terms of server-side view, which are gaining a lot of interest in the last year, has been hugely improved in terms of feature and in terms of speed. Now we have the mustache helper. How many of you use server-side view? We can go straight. Okay. There is a lot of information in server-side view. You can check the sample, the official sample. Then there is also the URL encoder serializer, which is a new serializer specifically used for the URL encoded format, which is the one used by when you click submit on an HTML form. And you can use it in this way, and automatically this tip person is deserialized using the data in the request body. HTMX support. No, I'm joking. We don't have now the time to do see the guy in front of the that told me that the time is up. And just to introduce it, HTMX is a library, is a JavaScript library. It's a very thin JavaScript library, which allows you to don't write JavaScript. It is not perfect, this definition, but the reason behind it is just to avoid to have such big and huge JavaScript framework to do front end. Okay, the browser is really good to display HTML. Why I should feed it with JSON? There are many cases when HTMX is a better choice. In the next, tomorrow there is a talk about HTMX if you are interested in such kind of things, to get better runtime speed, better development speed, mental sanity. I don't know your starting point, but and money saving because you took less time to develop your web application. Okay, in the flyer, in the bag, you have this discount for the trainings with up to 35% discount. Thank you.